So I think that creates does Jalen talk to his teammates? Does Jalen do this? You see what other quarterbacks, they're on the iPad or whatever. You don't see that from Jalen always. And I'm not saying that that's an indictment on him. I'm just saying I think that's the perception. And then when you see something like that, you get a little behind the scenes look. I think people like to see it at the very least. Welcome in, everybody, to a Wednesday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. I'm your host, Zander Krause. That's my co-host, John McMullen, back with another edition of the show, another 2-hour edition of the show as we inch closer to the Week 14 matchup. It's a Monday Night Football matchup, so we got an extra day of shows, actually, before we get to that game. We'll have next Monday's programming before the game. J-Mac, how you doing on this Wednesday morning, brother?
Too many wonky weeks, man. I'm going to blame that on the Eagles. No, I'm joking, but yeah, too many wonky weeks. This schedule, but that's an NFL problem as a whole. And now you got Saturday, December 20th, which we already knew.
Yeah, right.
But it came out 5:00 kickoff. What the hell's going on with this league? But I digress. Commanders, Eagles, down there, Northwest Stadium. You missed it, Week 16, 5:00 kickoff. So get ready for that one.
What did they move that from, or was that just the first time they said it? I thought it was.
No, that's the first time they said it. The game was announced. It was
right?
The time was to be determined. Interesting, but
I've never heard of that 5:00 on a Saturday.
Yeah. I don't, I guess they wanted to push, not push, but the big game is Packers Bears. Their rematch will be the night game at 8:20. So that's the normal time. I guess they didn't want any time in between, if the game ends on time. But another weird sort of outlier on a weird schedule. And here's another. Coming off a mini bye, you have an extra day. That's already happened. This will be the second time, so we'll see. They've generally been better with extra time than less time because they've been really bad on short weeks this year.
Yep, no doubt. Johnny Mac, good stuff. Let's update real quick what happened in Eagle Land yesterday. Not too much happened. The Hard Knocks episode did come out. I'm not sure if
woo, compelling.
Yeah, not very
compelling stuff.
Pretty boring all around. I won't lie. You hit the nail on the head. I forget what you called it when we first talked about it. It was like some sort of scripted, but it wasn't that. You said basically they just follow the same.
Well, they just do the same formula. It's probably
formulaic. That's the word you used. Yep, formulaic, and it was very formulaic. But there was a couple good things in there to see. I think some fans got to see a look at Jalen Hurts on the sideline where he took some accountability after the fumble and after the Devontae Smith play. So that was good to see, and I appreciated seeing that. But overall, not a whole lot in the Hard Knocks other than having to relive the last two losses for the Eagles.
I see a lot of people giving Jalen Hurts credit for his accountability. By the way, he already said it in the press conference with the fumble especially, and intimated the issues. Boy, that word's starting to bother me. The words start to bother. Like everybody in this league is like the same. Bunch of robots, bunch of Jalen Hurtses. Oh, you got it. Who gives a shit? Accountability. We know who made the mistake. I take this from my buddy Pat Leonard. I don't know if you saw the Joe Shane. He just roasted Joe Shane, which I give Pat a lot of credit for. Everybody should take a look at that. I put it on my X feed at JF McMullen if you want to see it. Now, number one, I'm envious that he can get, multiple questions and follow-ups in a press conference, even in New York, which you can't do here because we have so many lunatics. We have so many people covering this team. It's like one maybe get in a second.
Yeah, how the heck are you supposed to get real information with just
exactly. So it was great to watch, and it was that was true accountability, if you want to say that the GM had to go through. But his answers, Joe Shane's answers, it's all the same stuff. The process, blah, 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 blah. It's like Charlie Brown's teacher. Wah, 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 wah. That's all it is. Every single one of them. It's gotten to the point. womp womp. Oh, he took accountability, and everybody said, "Oh, what? But yeah, okay." You know, are you going to get on the same page with the receivers? Or, and I don't even necessarily blame the tush push stuff on Jalen, because I've said it pretty consistently. I think they need to pivot away from that, and take advantage of all the extra attention that's getting from the opposition to try and stop it. And now they're going to rip. That's all they're going to do. If you keep using it, they're going to rip and rip and rip and rip at the football. So you're at the mercy of the officials. And when they blow the whistle, sometimes it works, like against the Giants. They blew it. Sometimes it doesn't. So you're going to be at the mercy of that if you don't pivot off of it. But yeah, for some reason, I guess because so many people said, "Wow, accountability," and Mike Gill's saying he doesn't have a link. I don't know.
I just got him. Yep, I just did.
But yeah, I'm tired of the accountability talk. Not that I'm picking on Jalen, and it's not his fault that people picked up on it. But I saw a bunch of people pick up. I'm like, first of all, he already did it in the press conference, and.
Well, I'll tell you why. A lot of the TV viewers, me included, when they show Jalen John, and that's not to say this paints the whole picture anyway, and I think most people should know that, but, they show him on the sideline, and he's sitting there talking to nobody after a play like that, and they wait until, I guess, the pan to him. I don't know if they do it intentionally or whatever, but most of the time they pan to Jalen on the sidelines. He's just sitting there. So I think that creates does Jalen talk to his teammates? Does Jalen do this? You see other quarterbacks, they're on the iPad or whatever. You don't see that from Jalen always. And I'm not saying that that's an indictment on him. I'm just saying I think that's the perception. And then when you see something like that, you get a little behind the scenes look. I think people like to see it at the very least.
Well,
I'm not saying you're wrong.
I mean, I have to admit, like, to me, and I did catch some of it, and I was like, well, this is exactly what I thought it would be. And they do this every week with the mic'd up players and the Eagles unscripted stuff, and it's very heavily edited, obviously shifted. They're not gonna publicize arguments or things like that. And I get that part of it's cool for fans. I have no issue with that, but when and it's not anybody's fault, but when you make something out of it more than it is, it's like, this is what happens every week in the NFL. There's, you try to make adjustments at the line of scrimmage. That was a great adjustment if everybody was on the same page, and it's probably a touchdown, but they're not on the same page. And you talk about it afterwards. Why weren't we on the same page? Devontae thought he was signaling something else. That's the bigger issue. How do you get on the same page in week 14? But another example of built-in. See, I kind of look at it another way. That's another example of a built-in thing that worked in this offense. That worked from the right. Not even a play call, because it's not a play call, but from a schematic standpoint, because now in the modern game you have all these tweaks, and you go into the huddle with a play call that might be dominant, but you can move it off, and it's usually just simple as killing from pass and rush. I talk about it all the time, but you have all these other things. If you see this, you can do this. If you see this, you can do this. And the more experience you get as a quarterback, the more autonomy you got, and you get, and Jalen's got more autonomy, and he makes a really good decision, check into the play, but he didn't make it aware to his receiver clearly enough with the signal, because Devontae thought it was something else. And that to me tells you, again, another word that I'm sick of accountability. Everybody else is sick of execution, but that's execution.
Right.
Execute the play, touchdown. Fair enough. Simple touchdown, by the way.
Yep, good perspective there. Yeah, John, other than that, the Hard Knocks is pretty boring. I will continue to watch it because, I cover the team and we do the shows every day, and I like to have as much information as possible. But Yeah, pretty boring. Pretty freaking boring. I had to rewatch the Dak Prescott comeback and the Cowboy comeback with that, and then we watched the Eagles get destroyed by the Bears again in little glimpses. So that was tough to see. But overall, not bad. John, one other piece of news I want to get here. We do have a couple super chats we'll get to, and then we have Mike Gill coming up. And we have Brandon Lee Goutwin in hour number 2 back. So good stuff there. We'll have 2 great guests for everybody. Thanks for being here. Hit that like button for us this morning. John, Darius Slay released. I'm getting the tweets all over. Bring him back. John, what say you on Darius Slay? You think the Eagles should make a push? At first I said no, John. And then I said, would he start immediately over Adoree Jackson? Probably. So I guess it could be considered. What do you think, John?
Well, now it's more realistic, so now I think it's entertaining. I at least worth entertaining. The standpoint of, can he help? I think he can help, and I think the Eagles, obviously, by their trade for Jair Alexander, highlighted 2 things: that one, they need more help, at least in their minds, and 2, that the Bick is not confident in Adoree Jackson, Kelly Ringo, and Jacorian Bennett. So I think it's a worthwhile endeavor, but at this point, you got to go through waivers.
Yeah, I think Detroit's going to snap.
And I sit there and look at Detroit and say, Terry Arnold's on injured reserve. Maybe the only place he'd rather finish than Philadelphia is Detroit, and they're ahead of you on the waiver wire, and it might be all for naught. So you and by the way, the contract, because the way they structured it, and I mentioned that yesterday, I wouldn't claim them on waivers. Well, they structured it so you can claim them on waivers. It's only like $300,000 for the rest of the season. So waivers is not the problem. You can claim them, but I don't think you're going to get them over Detroit. We'll see. I think, if Detroit, for some reason, I'm not there every day. If they have more confidence in their young corners, maybe they let him pass and they don't claim him, and he'd be there for the Eagles. But one thing about the Eagles, man, and one thing about Howie Roseman, probably to a detriment, he likes to bring guys back.
Yeah, he does.
Brandon, he's talking out of retirement. He didn't even need Brandon. Now, at the time, he didn't have Jalen Phillips. So, Brandon doesn't even play, basically 5-10 snaps a game. But even that, you lose a Spread Johnson, brings him back. Marcus Epps, they started his practice window. He brought him back. There's numerous examples over the years. So he always wants to bring guys back. And that'd be a nice finish for Slay. Both teams would, Detroit and the Eagles, if he's going to retire after the season. And I do think he would be their second best corner the moment he stepped in the door. Even though he wasn't playing with Pittsburgh, playing that well with Pittsburgh, he played very well for the Eagles last season. And obviously he knows the scheme. He knows the defense. He knows Vic. Obviously, Vic's will be comfortable with him. So if he can get him, why not? You were trying to improve with Jair Alexander. So there's obviously concern. Now, I think Adoree Jackson started to play better, at least competently.
I agree with that. I think Adoree's been a little better.
But clearly, he's not. They don't look at him as, and you certainly don't need a backup corner. So he would be here to start, even if it's not immediate, certainly as you go down the stretch. So if they can get him, why not? Yeah, why not?
Good stuff there, Johnny Mac. John, a couple super chats we'll get to. Appreciate everybody for being here this morning. One other comment on Hard Knocks, I meant to tell you. Boy, I like Nick Sirianni when he's not not on the podium a lot more than I like Podium Sirianni. A lot more than I like Podium.
Well, he's a good dude.
He seems like a normal, cool guy. Yeah. Good, I like the way he coaches kind of behind the scenes. Not a huge sample size, not a lot of visual of that. But I'm so used to Nick coming to the podium, and I'm just like, ugh, another Sirianni press conference. But
no, I say all the time, completely different guy. I say it all the time. Both him and Kevin would win all the people that hate them over in 5 minutes. I mean, they're completely different people off the podium. And Nick specifically, he's a people person. So yeah, that probably shows up more.
Yeah. Let's get some super chats. We got a couple of them here, then we'll get to Mike Gill. Jared Hatfield. What's up, Jared? Jared, thank you also for becoming a member today, brother. Appreciate your support of the channel. Jared says, John, I have nearly full confidence that this defense can turn it around down the stretch, but none in the offense. In order for the D to have heart, they need to see the O playing with heart.
Well, complimentary football is a big thing. I do think, when you have a poor offense, it does wear on the defense, and they can, not live up to the standard that they have set for themselves. But, it's kind of 50-50 for me. It's, that doesn't mean you can make an excuse for what went on against Chicago. That was brutal. Like, rarely do you see a team get dominated in the run game like that in this league. And you really got to go back to the Eagles. That's what that's what the Eagles did to everybody last year. Just these massive holes. And again and again and again, and consistently. That's why I said macro, yeah, the offense. Offense. That's all anybody wants to talk about. But for that 60 minutes of football, don't be afraid to criticize that defense. They were awful. Awful.
Fair enough. Here's Niall. What's up, Niall? J-Mac, now that Howie's secret weapon is leaving for the Florida Gators, are they going to go back to having Rager and Dillard type picks? LOL. Caldwell's arrival in 21. Better drafting. Wow, John. Look at that.
Now people are bragging. How many people knew Dave Caldwell was here? And he's been here for like 5 years.
Niall's an educated fan. Niall is not. Niall knows. I'm sure Niall is aware.
Yeah, Dave's not that. Howie has, and by the way, he likes to have guys with experience around, and did it with Dorsey. Brought in John Dorsey for a short period. He's got Matt Russell. He's got Joe Douglas back. Who's going to
be the new Caldwell?
Joe Douglas. They had, for a couple of years now, that they've had two senior personnel guys who were advisors to Howie, and it's been Dave Caldwell and Matt Russell, who ran the Broncos personnel department for many years. And then they brought Joe, so they had three. So now they're back down to the normal setup, which is it'll be Joe and Matt Russell as the senior advisors. And somebody else gets fired, they might bring them in, man. Howie's a reclamation project for GMs. And trust me on this one, Howie was a big part of him getting that job in Florida.
Yeah,
big part.
That makes obvious sense to me.
Dave's a Florida guy, and Howie's kind of like, all right, let's get you rehabilitated. Not that big of a deal from the Eagles' perspective.
Niall says, I'm all about front office structure. So Niall's looking for making sure, all right, are we still in good shape draft-wise? I think we are, Niall. Here's Pumper. What do you think the emphasis was all week in regards to the Bears' day? What did Hurts say 5 minutes pregame? Disturbed at the lack of ball security by number one. He did say 5 minutes pregame that the Bears are the best takeaway team, but we're the best ball. We protect the ball the best. Pumper is taking accountability or is saying what you want to hear. I don't buy it from Hurts, but it's whispering sweet nothings into the Jalenites' ears.
Well, I mean, that's part of why I bring up Joe Shane, and I bring up Nick, and I bring up, now it's O'Connell because of what's going on there. They all say the same thing. It's the same thing. It's a shit show, and it's the same thing. Oh, but they're taking accountability. Are you?
Right. Actually do it, man. Actually do it.
And by the way, I'm a firm believer on you can't hold yourself accountable. That you can try. There are people who can. There are people who can be honest with themselves more than others. But you can't hold yourself accountable. You can't. It's just human. It's like,
I know what you mean.